Hello, hello, hello. This is Marshall Goldsmith. Very, very happy to be talking to you today. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. This is a wonderful program we have that's kind of jointly sponsored by Thinkers 50. It involves our 100 coaches, put on by Methods, a wonderful organization that's doing a great job of leading in terms of e-learning in a very, very different and crazy time. Let me briefly introduce myself, and we're going to get started. We have a very special show today. My name is Marshall. I'm from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. Went to school in Indiana, got a PhD at UCLA. I was a college professor and dean when I was very, very young. Then for the past 43 years, I've done a few things. One, I give talks or teach classes. So I travel all around the world speaking and teaching, been to 102 countries, and I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world twice. I write books and articles, written or edited 41 books. And one of my most favorite books was done with the person who's going to be with us today. Then I also coach executives. I've been the coach of many wonderful leaders around the world. And I love coaching because that's where I learn everything. Now, today we have a wonderful and special guest. Today we have a guest, one of my great friends, Sally Helgesen. I've known Sally for God knows how many years, probably 25 years. She is the world's authority, according to Forbes, in terms of leadership and issues of leadership in women. She's published many books. Her first book, The Female Advantage, 1990, just a really ahead of the curve book for women. And that book is still in print after 1990. One of the 8 books she published is called How Women Rise. I had the honor of being the second author on this book. I tell people Sally was the lead author. Now I'm the second author on this book. She did about 90% of the work, and she wrote the thing too. By the way, the book is phenomenally well written, How Women Rise. Why can I say it's phenomenal? She wrote it, not me. So I'm not bragging here. She's a great writer. So Sally's a wonderful friend, a great writer. And Sally, welcome. Take just a minute, introduce yourself. Let me eat my breakfast bar. You introduce yourself, and then we'll get rolling.
Marshall, thank you for that. Eat your breakfast bar, enjoy it. I'm Sally Helgesen. Wonderful to be here with my friend Marshall. And yes, we're in our 26th year of friendship. For the last 32 years, my focus has been helping women to recognize, articulate, and act on their greatest strengths, and also identify the challenges that can get in their way. And that's what Marshall and I focused on in How Women Rise. I also do leadership coaching and have, until about 5 weeks ago, been traveling the world to deliver seminars and workshops to companies, associations, law firms, every variety of organization. Again, from Kuala Lumpur to Cairo to Sao Paulo. That's stopped now, and I'm learning how to deliver some of it virtually, and really learning a lot in this very challenging and unexpected period of our lives.
Now, my good friend Sally, #1 question. What is the best piece of leadership advice you would have for people in terms of handling this crisis?
In terms of handling this crisis, really 3 things. And this draws from my workshop that I've been delivering for a while, but it really has particular application in this crisis. To be intentional, to be connected, and to be present. All of these, in my workshops, when I talk about being intentional, it really has to do with linking your job to your career, what is understanding and being able to articulate what it is you're trying to contribute to the world. So that's really being very intentional about your career development. Connected is engaging people that you know to help you achieve your objective, to help you act on your intention. And then thirdly is being present. So really show up for what your purpose is, for the people in front of you, for what you're trying to contribute. So that's been the template in my workshop, and I see that it adapts in particular ways now, especially in terms of intention and presence. We need to know what we want to contribute every day. because our schedules are upended, our regular routines and practices are upended. We may be isolated, either alone or just with our families. So having a very clear intention on a day-by-day basis, I think, helps us make the decisions of, which Zoom call we'll participate in today, and what ones we'll let go, and how we're going to use our energy, and how we're going to keep ourselves in balance. And the same thing with presence. Tough to be present in this environment. There's distraction, there's bad and upsetting news, and we don't have, our regular support system in place. So very important to think about how being intentional, being connected, and being present serves us in this environment.
Excellent. One word I use is very parallel word, mindful, just mindfulness. And as a Buddhist, I try to be mindful. Sally, there's only one thing that inhibits my skill at being mindful. Do you know what that is?
What is it?
I forget.
I know that, Marshall.
I forget to be mindful. I write a little card. Remember to be mindful. It's literally, everybody thinks of mindfulness is this very spiritual, blah, blah, blah thing. A lot of mindfulness is being aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. And the big reason I'm not mindful is literally, as you said, I get distracted by the news, by some video, by some stupid URL, and I literally forget to be mindful. So a great message is to everyone out there, make a little card and look at it about every 5 minutes and say, remember to be present, remember to build connections. Just great advice. Sally, number 2, what advice are you giving your clients?
Well, it's really that, is to be mindful, is to be present, to be very clear about what their intentions are, and to not forget, in terms of intention, to really not forget the importance of using this time well to position themselves going forward. Again, it's confusing. Marshall, you gave me a fantastic piece of advice at the very beginning of this crisis. You and I were together in San Jose just as it was unrolling. We did a program for eBay. That was the end of our travels.
We are both so lucky that we didn't get that. Our behavior, Sally, we were hugging people, shaking hands. So we were both really lucky we didn't get this.
We were very lucky. I flew back from that engagement on American Airlines. I was in first class, and this shows how times have changed. Do you know what American Airlines did? There were only 42 people on a 747. They upgraded everybody and put them in first class. So the first class was filled, we were jammed, and it was empty back there. 3 days later, that never would have happened. But here's what you told me in San Jose, and this really speaks to the message I'm trying to convey here. You said, Sally, use this time, because we both realized what was going to happen. The speaking and everything we had planned was going to collapse. You said, use this time to build your brand, to stay connected, and to be real. And every day, that's what I have on my placard. I have build your brand, stay connected, be real. And the brand building really speaks to intention. Being real speaks to being present. And of course, this time has been a great gift in terms of having the ability and time to stay connected with a broad range of people. I know I'm more connected now than I usually am, because I'm not bouncing all over the world. So I'm communicating with extended family, with people I went to high school with old friends, as well as colleagues and clients. So it's very rich in that way.
It's interesting, the comment, be real. That's one thing I have felt out of this crisis, because I asked Lida, my wife, why do people like these live shows, as opposed to you can watch a video and get the content. And I think people like it because it's more real. Like I'm eating my breakfast bar and people's dogs are walking by and You just see people as human beings as opposed to everything as a big show. And I really think now people appreciate more, people have become more human. When we're faced with illness and death, I think people do become more human, and we drop a little of that, slick, packaged, everything has to look perfect, and people can be more real. Now, you're the world's expert at women's and leadership. What are some of the unique challenges you find specifically with women in today's challenging times?
Well, one thing I think certainly that I'm hearing and finding a lot is women are being challenged because they are often managing young children, even as they're continuing to work from home. And that can be really, really challenging. So women are having to enlist and engage their husbands, often at a level that their husbands have not been engaged before. And so I think that's really one of the big challenges that women have here. The incredible upside of that, and to me this is something we're going to look back on as really historic, is that women have struggled for 30 years in the workplace to some degree with structural and cultural impediments, you could call them, and with habits and behaviors that can get in their way, as you and I have discussed. And the cultural has to do often with male attitudes and bias. But the structural constraints have been important because the workplace is still very much designed as a place that it was designed when it served only men, when only men were primarily participating in the workplace. And so the divisions between work and home have gotten in the way of many women, especially women who have young children. I was talking to a client yesterday. She said, we're a very traditional old line company. They're in the South. They're in the energy industry. She said, and we have been highly skeptical about any working from home and very resistant to that. She said, this has changed everything. She said, and I don't see us really going back. So yes, working from home can be problematic in terms of managing a family, although most of us have nobody else in the house now. So that's tougher. But I think that also we're going to look back on this time as the time when that traditional barrier between work and home began to erode. And I believe that in the long term, that is going to serve women magnificently.
No, Sally, my lovely wife, Lyda, and on a serious note, I would like all of the people out there to send her their hopes and prayers. Why she has to live with my sorry butt 24 hours.
Marshall, better her than me.
Now, Sally, before we get a little
I'm being real,
judgmental,
Marshall.
I know you are. Now, Sally, are you getting a little impatient with Bart out there? I noticed
my Lord.
Are you getting a little impatient with the lovely Bart? Just a little bit now.
He's driving me nuts. I gotta say.
I saw you today.
Very safety conscious at a level that I am incapable of being, and it's causing a little bit of conflict. Although I appreciate his concern.
On a crazy meter scale, 100 is he's maximum driving you crazy and 1 is none. How's he on the old crazy meter doing?
I'd say we're probably at about 70 right now. I'm sorry to say. And he's a great guy. We're just not used to, I'm usually on the road. I'm usually gone. And I'm here.
Me too. We're both usually gone. Now, Sally, are both you and I used to being kind of the experts and sharing our wisdom with others? Exactly. And both of us, to our husbands and wife, do they necessarily love to hear our expertise?
They have no interest. No interest. We are not experts in our own homes. They're skeptical, and guess what? They've heard it all. They've heard it all. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Now, Sally,
Yeah.
what's a good question that you would like to answer for the group? If you could say, here's a perfect question I'd like to answer, what is it?
Okay, one of the questions I'd like to answer that really draws on my own expertise is that what do I think the impact, I've talked about this kind of structural barrier between work and home breaking down, but what do I think the impact is going to be long-term on how we perceive excellence in leadership? Because I think that's an important question. This is a big deal that's happening right now, and I think our perceptions of excellence are going to change. I was citing the other day on LinkedIn a post by a colleague, Aviva Cox-Wittenberg, about how the countries, of the 10 countries that are handling this the best, it's interesting that 6 or 7 are led by women. And women's collaborative skills and focus on care and compassion, and their also, rigorous desire to be truthful, not necessarily in the service of making themselves look good at every moment, is also serving their countries very well. Germany's an example, Taiwan's an example, New Zealand, Norway, Finland. So I thought that was very interesting. And I think that we have been in a cycle over the last decades where leadership is being redefined. West Point, they teach empathy now. Are you kidding? Can you imagine that 30 years ago? So some of the so-called soft skills that were dismissed back when the female advantage came out as being soft skills, those are now recognized as leadership skills. And I think that that's something that we're really going to see change and exponentially increase as a result of this crisis.
Well, I learned, Sally, I'm supposed to ask in advance when I do the intro for questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I was supposed to do that in the beginning, but I forget about, half the time. So anyway, the chat box. You've been around me too long. So in the chat box. Any questions for Sally, any questions for me, write them in the chat box. And then I've got to put in at least one comment from How Women Rise, because one thing you taught me in that book was just a breakthrough for me. I'd never even heard of the concept before. And that's, don't sacrifice your career for your job. How many women, far more than men, they sacrifice their career for their jobs. They're getting so interested in doing a perfect job, they don't really promote themselves and they sacrifice their career. And Sally, I want to build on a comment you made. So many women are great leaders. In fact, women leading countries tend to be doing better. Just maybe 1 or 2 quick comments on this concept of don't sacrifice your career, that long-term benefit you could give to the world for your job, that day-to-day activity you're working on now.
Well, certainly. And one of the things I find is, the perfection trap, the idea that many women or a lot of women have that, if they do everything perfectly, they'll be rewarded. That can keep them caught in over-focusing on their job because they're really trying to devote all their energy. I'm going to do a perfect job here, and that will lead to me being rewarded. Whereas actually, if you do a perfect job, you're basically proving that you're the perfect person for the job you have. So it's not really a long-term or strategic way of focusing your attention. So that can undermine you. And then in addition, you can be reluctant to talk about, to advocate for what you have not only achieved, but what you could achieve. Which is looking forward and building your career. You may feel like doing that is going to be perceived of as disloyal to your boss or your team, again, that's something that can to some degree keep you stuck. So it is a concept that so many women resonate with. When I do short programs, I always ask the client, please choose 3 behaviors to focus on in our program that you think will really apply to the women that I'll be speaking to. And they almost always include that behavior.
Yeah, that one was a breakthrough for me. Now, Sally, we have the wonderful Sarah MacArthur, who you and I know, who's editor of many books, which we are contributors to. She's got our first question. Sarah, what is question number 1 for Sally?
Wonderful. So good to hear you too. What a great interview. Thank you. The first question we have is from Marco Oliveira, which is, right now, are we ready to stop focusing on gender differences, do you think, and instead focus on the skills of individuals?
I think we're moving to that place. I think it's been very important for women to focus on what they can contribute and to bring attention to that to their organizations. I think that has been an important stage. But I believe that How Women Rise really needs to support our rising together, and that we need to look at more collaborative and creative ways of leading organizations and focus on the individuals who are contributing at the highest level there, while also recognizing that people who may be outsiders to some degree to the mainstream of what's expected at leadership do have particular challenges that need to be addressed. So I think that serves. I think that helping women to address some of that and raising awareness in organizations ultimately serves organizations being better run and getting more astute about how to identify who would be a successful leader.
Excellent question. Sarah, question number 2.
Number 2, thank you so much, Sally, for that answer. We have another question from Fran Pastana. And Fran asks, as one of those women hoping to benefit from these changes, how do we ensure we maximize, as women, we maximize on this opportunity?
I think I would say what I said in the beginning. Think in terms of being very intentional in this period and choosing how you intend to show up and how you want to use your time and technology so that you're most effective. Use this time also to stay connected. One of the dangers of this period is that we're losing face time and visibility in our organizations often. So we want to think very intentionally again how we're going to continue to stay visible in our organizations, even though they're fragmented and so many people are working from home. So that kind of combines the intentional and the connected, and then the capacity to be present, to really think about how can I filter out the distractions. And in this environment, that's really tough. To stay present for what I want to be achieving, for what I can contribute now, but what I want that long term to be. We don't know. This is really hard because we don't know how long this is going to last or what the fallout is going to be economically and in terms of our organizations. We're really in an unknown here. But being able to, by focusing on the day and what we want to contribute, we can look ahead and think about how after the staying at home period has expired, how we intend to maybe position ourselves to be able to contribute at our utmost, because it's really about contribution. I think that's a better language to use necessarily than achievement.
Okay, very good. Sally, one of the things you talked about is the importance of connection. You're a member of our wonderful 100 Coaches organization, which now is more than 100. That's okay. Describe that as a way to how people have been connecting with each other in that group.
In the 100 Coaches, that has been a transformative organization for me to belong to. First of all, I want to say that one of the greatest joys of my life, and probably the prime reason for my success, has been the colleagues that I've been in networks with. The Learning Network, which Marshall started years ago, now the MG 100, the International Women's Forum, some of these groups of colleagues have been so vital. With the MG 100, what we're doing, and this has been fantastic, is we have a Zoom call every single weekday. The first 2 weeks we had it on weekends as well. So I start my day most days. Sometimes I can't do it, of course, but most days I start by checking in on that Zoom call, and we have different topics. Most of us have our own business, so we talk sometimes about that and what we can do to survive. We talk about the economic implications. My favorite day is Medical Friday, which we just had this morning, where we hear from members of the MG 100 who have real medical expertise. They're doctors, they're researchers who are also coaches and organizational forces for organizational excellence. So we hear from them about some of the latest research being done. We get lots of fact-based information, which is good in this environment when we're on information overload. So that's been enormously valuable. And then sometimes we email back and forth afterwards to say, oh, I love the point you made. And I find that deepens relationships as well.
Final questions from Sarah.
So thank you so much, Sally. I have a question for you. I've read so much of your work over the years and known you for a number of years as well, and just love reading your writing. And I just wanted to ask you a question, since I've got the floor right now. Who is your hero as a woman who, and thinking of a woman as your hero, who would you say your hero is and why, or your heroine is and why?
Well, Marshall and I both dedicated How Women Rise to Frances Hesselbein and said that she was our hero. And she has been an inspiration and a hero of mine, who I've been fortunate enough to know for about 32 years now. She was one of the women I profiled in the Female Advantage, Women's Ways of Leadership. She exemplifies being intentional, one of the most intentional leaders I've ever met. Every single action and word has a purpose. She is a devotion. She has a devotion to the notion of service. She is extraordinarily connected and not shy about using her connections to achieve and contribute what she wants. And she has a very, very strong leadership presence, a very grounded individual. So I would say that she has been consistently my hero, and I can't say role model. I don't really resonate with the role model concept that much, but she certainly has been not only a hero, but a major influence on my thinking.
Very good. Well, finally, Sally, I always ask a question, is my life better off or worse off because I met this person? My life is certainly better off because I met you. So thank you so much for all the wonderful contribution you've made to my life. I think the lives of a lot of people are better off because of all the things that you've said, the work that you've done. So I'm so honored to know you. Thank you so much for being our guest today. I hope to have you back again, because our time just seemed like zoom by just like that. So everybody, big round of applause. Thank you to Sally Helgesen. Thank you, Sally. Yay.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you.